Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm coming at you with a video, and I know it's been a while. I'm really sorry, but today I'm coming at you with a really fun video. There's a lot of off-season news going on at the moment, but you can watch anyone else's channel for that, because it's my first video back in a long time, so I want to do a fun one. We all know Season 4 is over now, it's out the way, but now let's take a look back on it, and take a look at some of the best moments, because in this video I'm going to be telling you my Season 4 Overwatch League Dream Team. I'm only going to have a starting 6, 2 tanks, 2 DPS, 2 support. You heard me right, a starting 6, not a starting 5 as we're going to see when Overwatch 2 rolls around, a starting 6. A couple of rules to get in place before I actually give you my starting 6 players. First of all, to make it interesting, to make sure we don't just have Shanghai Dragons plus a couple of players, I'm limiting myself to 1 player from each team. It's going to make things a lot more difficult, but it's going to make it a lot more spicy as well. Also, I'm only taking Season 4 into consideration. Forget about the past seasons. I'm going to be looking at how these players have played in the previous season, forgetting about the old seasons, although in reality you would want to look at all the seasons, because who knows, you could pick up a player that was good in one season and they'd be inconsistent forever, but this is all fantasy, so that doesn't matter. I'm just going to be picking up my favourite 6 players, all from different teams from Season 4 of the Overwatch League, so let's go. So let's kick things off with my 2 tanks, and at main tank, I'm going to be blowing away one of the best teams in the league, so stacked full of some of the best players straight away here on my first pick. My main tank, it's got to be Fearless. Even though Dallas Fuel is stacked full of such phenomenal players who I could use at any of the positions, seriously, at each role, Dallas Fuel could be on this team, and if I wasn't limiting myself, I'd see probably at least 3 Dallas Fuel players on this roster, but because I only get 1 player from each team, I've had to go with Fearless. I feel like people slightly dumbed down Fearless's season, as towards the end, he was proving to us that he wasn't as flexible as we'd have liked him to do, so they kind of refer to him as a Winston and Reinhardt 2-trick, and to be honest, if you hold that opinion, I don't blame you. We saw Fearless find by far the most success on his Monkey, and then followed by his Reinhardt, so I don't blame you if you have the position that you can't play any other roles. But let me pitch this idea for you. The Dallas Fuel played with no hit scan all season. I don't think it would be very difficult for that team to have played Monkey all season, and Fearless, I mean, he was carrying on Monkey when later we'd find out that Winston wasn't actually meta. My reason for picking Fearless is basically a sheer talent perspective. I don't really care if he's not as flexible, and if we look into the next season, you'd probably want someone much more flexible than Fearless, but Fearless really got the job done to a mental level on Winston and Reinhardt. After stage 1, he was an MVP candidate. Stage 2, he was still definitely up there. After stage 2, it dropped a bit, but we could still see, watch the games, we could still see Fearless popping off when he was on his comfort picks. So that's why I've gone with Fearless as my main tank for this Season 4 Dream Team roster. Who's going to be joining him at the off-tank position though? And in my eyes, this isn't actually a very difficult pick. Sure, there is a few phenomenal players at this position, but when I think about it, when I think about a player in relation to their team, because keep in mind we can only pick 1 player from each team, when I think about that and put that into this system, my mind immediately jumps to the Sigma god, Piggy. For the majority of the season, Piggy was only playing Sigma, and this was no questions asked. I don't think this is much of a debate to have here. His Sigma was the best we've ever seen. When you look at how well that Houston Outlaws roster did, and when you look at the pieces on their team, Dante, Happy, Django even, you see these players and you think, they must all be putting in a goddamn shift, but then you watch the games back and you see Piggy was putting these guys on his back time after time after time, on a hero who you wouldn't traditionally think blends well with the other heroes they were playing. I'm talking about their Reinhardt Sigma compositions. Piggy was definitely in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. If this was any other season, I would have seen it go to him. I mean, you put up against Pelicans, so it's a very difficult challenge, and if Houston Outlaws actually got somewhere within tournaments, I could definitely have seen that award going to Piggy. But the most impressive part of what I'm saying here is everything about Piggy I've mentioned so far has been about his Sigma. And throughout the season of Season 4, we got a bit worried. I mean, if Sigma's not viable or if it's banned, will this Houston Outlaws team collapse? And the league gifted us with a hero ban of Sigma, so we got to see Piggy play D.Va. And, okay, maybe not to the same degree, but everything I've said about Piggy's Sigma applies to his D.Va. Not the best in the league on D.Va, as I said, for his Sigma, but this does not mean his Sigma was bad. I mean, we've seen this guy play Sigma alongside a Reinhardt, which you would not conventionally. expect, and he has found phenomenal success on it. So when you see him play Diva, when you see him play in a more traditional team composition that isn't really a Houston Outlaws exclusive, what do you think is going to happen? You see this guy, known top tier off tank, and then you see him starting to play stuff that actually fits with the pieces around him. You can just imagine how well he did. And these are just the reasons that I'm picking him for my off-tank dream team of Season 4. Now that we're done with the tank line though, let's take a look at the support role. So I've kind of put it on myself that I'm gonna have to choose a main support and a flex support. Even though last season from many of the top tier teams, we actually saw them running 2 flex supports at many times. We literally saw a flex support in Skewed playing Brigitte to be the best Brigitte in the league, but I'm going to put it on myself that I need a main support and a flex support, which is actually going to make this a bit more difficult, and it is probably going to make my following pick much more controversial. The reason why me picking a main support was so difficult was because not a ton of people were actually running consistent main supports, and when they were, unless they were on a very top tier team, it wasn't supremely impressive. And this is why I'm going to have to use my most dominant team pick. I'm going to have to use my Shanghai Dragons pick on main support for Li Jaegong. So I'll first of all get out the way why I didn't want to have to make this decision. Now, let's think about it. It's the Shanghai Dragons. Half this team would be made up of players from it if I wasn't limiting myself to 1 per team. And in Season 4, Li Jaegong wasn't the best player on the Shanghai Dragons. I'll be the first to admit that. He's probably one of the less influential when we look at Season 4 alone on that team. But this doesn't take away from the fact that he was very impressive, albeit on a team full of very impressive players. On this fictional roster I'm creating, Li Jaegong acts more as a buffer. He fulfills a very important role on this team, and that is that he is a good player, in a role where last season there was not much impressive stuff happening. But now on to the good things. I mean, for God's sake, it's Li Jaegong. Who would be upset to have him on your team? Extremely hyperactive, aggressive, constantly doing stuff player. And I say this with his Lucio in mind, and everybody knows that his Lucio is one of the most aggressive yet successful in the league, but last season Brig was the predominantly meta main support, and from Li Jaegong, I have no complaints. When you're playing Lucio versus when you're playing Brig, you've got to have 2 extremely different mindsets. You can't run into the backline and hope for a pick as Brig as you might be able to with Lucio, and this is something that I feel like people without watching games would expect from Li Jaegong. They'd expect him to just apply his Lucio aggressive playstyle to his Brigitte play and just run at people and hope he kills them. But when you watch him play, that's not what he does. He fills the Brigitte role perfectly, while he plays a more unconventional Lucio style. And this would really help my fictional roster as it gives you multiple looks. I mean, depending on what composition you're playing, you can change the tempo, you can switch it up, and that is also just what makes Li Jaegong such a great main support as a whole. Who's going to be meeting him at the flex support role though? Well, it's going to be none other than the man, the myth, the legend, the beast, Shu. When we look at the teams I have left to pick a player from, I don't think this pick can shock anybody in the slightest. The support line for the LA Gladiators did so much for them last season, which, similar to players on the Dallas Fuel and Shanghai Dragons, is an extremely high level of praise, because you look at the other players on their team and think, by God, these other people should be carrying. But then you look at the support line on the Gladiators, watch their games, and you realise Shu is putting in a shift. I mean, he can play it all to a mental level. His Ana is incredible. His Baptiste is incredible. From what we saw of his Zen, it is incredible. And I know right now I'm spitting out the most generic takes you have ever heard about this guy, but that's because words can't define how well he was playing on the Gladiators last season. When we look at the people I'm putting next to him on this fantasy roster, Li Jaegong, extremely aggressive if you want to put him on the Lucio. Fearless, extremely aggressive if you want to put him on the Winston. And then Piggy can play Sigma if you want to play more slow. Shu perfectly matches these guys. In a sense, he can play in whatever playstyle they want him to. Unlike Li Jaegong, where it's more hero dependent how he plays, Shu can play multiple different playstyles on the same hero, which is an extremely impressive aspect of his gameplay and just what this fictional roster needs. Now onto the, I guess many of you consider it the star of the show, even though not too fussed about it myself, because I mean, look at this roster I've already got built. No matter who we put at the damage role, it's going to win the league. But now it's time for DPS, the moment you've all been waiting for. Don't think you'll be that surprised at my picks, but there's definitely different options you could have gone with here. Let's kick things off with Leave. Now listen, Leave was my MVP. Leave was the people's MVP. Leave won the MVP award for a reason. The Chengdu Hunters wouldn't have even got a whiff of the level of success they found in Season 4 if Leave wasn't on their roster. That is not a hot take. That is literally just a fact. I think it's easy to establish that Leave was an extremely influential player on his team, but I think the more important thing to focus on is how influential he was in the league as a whole. Did he actually stack up against these guys, or did he just look good when he was surrounded by a bunch of meh, alright players on the Chengdu Hunters? And I don't think you need me to spell it out for you. He won MVP and he's on my dream team. I think we all know where he lands in association with other players in the league. I could break it down for you hero by hero, but the fact of the matter is anything Leaves plays is going to impress me and you and everyone that watches the league. For me, Leave felt similar to a Season 1 Prophet in a sense. You literally have no fears on what they play him on, because anything he plays is going to be considered one of the best in the league on it. And you can see this so easily. I don't need to tell you any specific games to watch, because you can just watch any of them. On YouTube, search Chengdu Hunters. Whatever the first game from them comes up, watch it, and watch Leave pop off. I don't need any stats for you. I don't need any specific game for you to watch, because you can see it every time he plays. You could put him in the lobby for half a minute and he would pop off and he'd impress you, and he would put himself in the conversation of MVP if others had been playing for hours and he'd played half a minute. That is how impressive Leave is, and that is why he's on this roster. I don't think I need to go any further. And who better to round out this superstar DPS roster with the winner of the other award that people are hyped up about? It's Pelican, the Rookie of the Year. Now, first of all, some logistical stuff. Leave and Pelican, very similar hero pools, but you know what? Their hero pools are only similar in the sense that their hero pools incorporate every hero in the game. I mean, you could have either of these guys playing Echo or Tracer for the whole season and they'd carry. I guess if I think about it, Leave would probably play the more hit scanny role. Pelican would definitely be flexing. Pelican would play the Mei if you need it, whereas Leave would play the Widow if you need it. But both these players can't really be confined to a currently known term to convey their role, because they both play it all. They if you wanted one of them to play the opposite person's role, they could do it and they wouldn't even need time to prepare. Usually on a roster you want 3 DPS to make sure you cover all bases. This one, I mean, if you only had 1 DPS in the game, you'd only need 1 of these DPS on your roster and you'd have all bases covered. And I know, I'm sorry, these are further generic takes. Oh, Pelican is flexible. Oh, Leave can play it all. But they really can. These are generic but true statements I'm making here, and that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. I want you to comment down below your 6 players for your dream team. Would they beat mine? Or comment why, if they would. Would my team I've given you win the league, or would they lose to a team who can have as many players from the same team as they like? Comment down below, I'd like to hear. Bye.